Bum, bum.
Hello. How are we all doing today, friends?
Hello. It's a good Friday.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Friday. It's hot here. I don't know if it's hot where you are, but
We live
hi.
relatively similarly. It's 100 degrees today.
It's
Ugh.
104.
Ah,
I
you
got you
got
beat
me
by
beat.
4.
Right.
Um, but hey, my name is Ibrahim. I'm your humble, not GM. And we are doing a little bit of a catch up stream today. So, my name is Ibrahim. You can find me on TikTok and on Twitter. If you search up Ibrahim, I will be within the top 10. Um, so that's pretty good for me personally. But at 97 Ibrahim on Twitter, at Ibrahim underscore MA on TikTok. My pronouns are he, him. And oh, who's that over there? It's my
Oh,
lovely co-host.
hello. It's me. I'm the co-host today. I'm Kendrick or Kendo, whichever you prefer. You can find me on social media at Kendo Makes Films. And you can find the actual play podcast that I do that's tangentially related to this stream at Tales Yet Told on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere you uh, listen to podcasts, actual play podcasts specifically. Um, and I use they, he pronouns. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, I had to get you on the show. It's just been I've been seeing some of the work you've been doing other places, and it's just been so stellar. We had to bring you on here so you could share your talent and your art with the world.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. Thank you so much.
so today, my friends, we are going to be talking about our show, this anthology series that we've been putting together called Prayers in the Static, or Pits if you're feeling spicy.
If you're
Um,
feeling a little spicy, all right. I'm real bad with acronyms, I found. Um, it just doesn't go great. I will name something and the name itself sounds really good. And you're like, oh, that's solid. And then you have to social media and you're like, all right, the quickest thing is an acronym and then I'll do it. And then it's PITS.
eh,
So
Happened to the
here we
best
are.
of us.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the acronym notwithstanding, this show has been incredible to put together, and we've put a lot of different things into it. So I think a good place to start would be what our inspirations were for the show and what sort of led us to think of making this anthology series what it is.
Yeah. I guess I can go ahead and start because I'm the one who approached you about the project. Um, I so my like um my kind of I'm trying to think of a good word inciting incident of me coming up with the idea for what is now called Prayers in the Static. I had started watching Gundam for the first time. I was watching Mobile Suit Gundam, And if you know anything about Gundam, specifically about the uh, what is it, the Universal Timeline,
Hmm.
uh, it is a kind of story overall, or at least starts off about the story of a 1 year war between the Earth Federation, all of the nations having turned into a world government on planet Earth, versus the nation of Zeon, which is this burgeoning nation that comes out of a kind of movement towards like what they call spacers, people born on the space colonies, having not been on Earth, like having generations not been on Earth, um, moving towards their independence and to some varying degrees, their supremacy. Um, and it takes place over that war and like the kind of back and forth between these different characters on both sides, and the way that they interact with each other in the world, and eventually how there is now a third group of evolved humans. But whatever. But it started off with this idea, and I thought it would be really cool to see like to make a setting in a similar fashion because I think around the time I came up with the idea, Elon Musk of all people,
Hmm.
was he was doing his thing where like we got to get off Earth. That's
Right.
not what he sounds like. He's not from Texas, but I can't do a South African accent, so
Right. But
it
what he
is what
did
it
was
is.
he came to you and he gave you the briefcase full of money and he said, "I need you to make this to encourage people to get off Earth." Right?
And then yeah, no, he, Mr. Musk, thank you so much for your,
For your
no, God,
funding.
no, for your funding
No.
of prayers in the
Thank
static.
God, no.
No, God, if he were to, I wouldn't, um, but it was like kind of around that and like seeing like this is the eventual thing, right? Of the way that it happens in reality in comparison to Gundam is a bunch of corporations start being like, let's go to space. And as soon as they're out there out of the jurisdiction of Earth, and the people there, they would immediately vie for their own independence so that capitalism can do what it does, and run independent from the laws of most people and just do kind of whatever, what capitalism does. Um,
Mhm.
and I thought that's a cool setting. I would love to be able to tell a story in that. And as I was thinking of like, oh, this would be the campaign to play in that, I started thinking more and more games. And I was like, I want just like a setting of this is what I'm looking for. I want a setting that is this world that is completely game neutral, right? And even really genre neutral. Like it's sci-fi, but you can have anything take place in it. You can have high political drama. You can have your gay warriors fighting each other in big mechs. You can
Yep.
have like small, intimate moments of like just a day in a life of people living in that setting. I wanted something that was comprehensive enough and had enough depth that like it could hold all of these different things in it at once. And I, I'll brag a little bit. I think I'm pretty good at storytelling. I think I'm pretty good.
Mhm.
I'm not good enough right now to be able to make something that comprehensive, like that broad stroking. And I have also always wanted to do live streaming, like actual plays. And I said, like, this this medium of like live streaming is the best form of collaborative gaming in a way where like you can bring on people from anywhere, like all across the world. If someone has an internet connection that's stable enough to run a webcam and have a conversation and play these games, like you can have as many different people, as many different voices, as much color in this world as you can have. And oh, thank you, Barnaby. Oh, thank you for coming here. Also, hello, Barnaby. Um, and I was like, I really just want to be able to tell, like, create this world with a bunch of different people because it's going to be way better than anything I just sat down and pulled out of my ass and was like, all right, guys, time to play it. Like, I think world building is something that should inherently be somewhat collaborative. Um, Unless you're writing a book by yourself, like go ahead and do that, but I still think that it is important to take inspiration and to hear the voices of various different people about what should be happening in that world, because then you just have so much more of a nuanced view of what's really going on, so much more interesting, I think, as well.
100%. I could not agree more. And I think it's really important that you touched on world building as a collaborative endeavor because regardless of whether or not you are writing a book by yourself, you did not form all of the opinions or gain all of the information or develop all of the talent that you put into that book on your own. You were influenced by
Mhm.
other people, and those influences are what help contribute to your unique contributions to the world. So I think approaching storytelling from a collaborative lens from the beginning in the production process is a very important technique to utilize when you want to tell a variety of stories that appeal to people who maybe you don't have that much in common with.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of my insight. That was like my inciting thing of like, this is why I want to make it. And then Ibrahim, love
Yeah.
you. You're great. We had only played a game once together before. No, we had played two
Oh,
games.
twice.
We,
Don't forget.
yeah, we
I
played
always forget
Weston.
this one. It
Yeah,
was
and then
Vesson
we
and then
also,
World Wrestling.
yes, which was amazing. You blew my socks out of the water with your character, and like the surprise amount of like character development he ended up getting like during our short like time playing, amazing. And like that just stuck with me, and I was like, I want Ibrahim to co-host the stream with me, because again, I was like, there's no way I can do like collecting all of this information, and like even like having to pull like information from all of the different games being played, and um like like having to collate all of that and then make it something that was like readable, digestible by anyone other than myself. Like I was like, I would need help, and so I was like, I want to see if Ibrahim wants to do it. And shockingly enough, you happen to be a huge sci-fi fan, which was the
Right.
thing I didn't know about you until I approached you about this.
Yeah, no, it's a thing I don't talk about all that much. Unfortunately, uh I don't really have the I guess I don't really have the opportunity to. It just
Mhm.
seems like a thing that doesn't come up. Um but yeah, no, when you approached me, I was just amazed that you thought to approach me because I'll be honest, I always forget that we played Vestin together. I thought that we had played one game together and you had just been like, that's the one, need you. Um but, yeah, no, I was, in awe at the opportunity. I think this is an amazing project to get to work on, and, I was already a listener of, Tales Yet Told, which is an amazing actual play podcast. For those who don't know, Tales Yet Told, is this amazing, heartwarming story, much in the vein of, uh I forget, Over the Garden Wall, I believe.
Yeah,
Um, it's remarkable. Please check it out.
I
But
appreciate it.
getting to work with you on this has been very interesting because at that point in time, I had played perhaps 3 tabletop role playing games in my life and had never GM'd a game. Um, so I wasn't super confident in my ability to contribute with the game systems, and I've gotten a lot more confident with that recently. Um, but what I was fairly confident in, and I hope doesn't sound too braggadocious, is I'm a fairly good writer. I can write pretty well. Um, so that was my intent that I was just going to be writing things. But then I realized, oh, okay, I'm also going to be playing things. So I'm going to be acting. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be helping to collate information from a bunch of different games, potentially some games that I might not be involved in. Um, so there's so many moving pieces that I really appreciate that I have Kendo here to help me out and to like rely on for a lot of the missing pieces that I don't have any ability to fill in. And I think that's why this works.
Yeah, I agree. Because I will say one thing that I think, and I will 100% give you the credit. You are a way better writer than I am. As like I have plenty of ideas, and I have a hard time. I've been having a lot, like a really hard time recently, being able to put those. I can put down stuff on a page, but in a way that it doesn't feel as fluid or as um what's the word I'm looking for? See, I have a hard time speaking and choosing words. It takes me like a I get really stuck in writing. Anytime I'm like trying to write and I'm like there's a thing I'm trying to say, I can't quite figure out how to arrange the words to say it. And I think you're very very talented in that regard. Ibrahim writes all
Mm,
of the scripts for I think all except I did the first script, but every other script since and of Sunlight, completely written by Ibrahim. Um,
so
very
kind of you to say.
wonderful, absolutely. Like I still, and we will talk about more about Sunlight later. But I'm still like in awe of the script for I think it was the Mothership game. Yeah, it was the ship for the Mothership game, and like the just like the reporting of like this terrible terrible thing um that was happening in this setting, and like I hope my acting did it justice. um
100%. 100%. And here's where I will cut in and say that if you believe that I'm a better writer, I will not fight you on that. But you are a far better dramatic actor and are able to improvise in ways that just I don't know how to do. The level of improvisation that you've brought to the show, throwing unexpected things at us or turning things and flipping them on their head, and just in general reacting on almost no notice to the ridiculous things that we try to pull in these games. It that is a skill. It takes a lot of skill at improvisation to be able to do that and do that consistently.
I well, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean any I'm a firm believer that any improv is only as good as the people that you're doing it with. I would not be able to do the things that I do as a game master or a player without the other people that I'm playing with. And I think like that's like for any table. It's not just like one person that makes a table. It's the whole thing. And yeah, it's been really really good doing this thing with you, and I appreciate our time doing this. And I'm very
Mhm.
excited to see where things go.
Yeah, it's all up from here in my estimation. Um, But to move from that to just to give an example before we get into Sunlight, because I know we're chomping at the bit to talk about Sunlight Askew, who is
Right.
perhaps my favorite character that exists in this world.
Yeah.
Um, I think it would be at least appropriate to mention some of our inspirations. You've mentioned Gundam.
Mhm.
Personally, a lot of where I'm drawing when I'm writing scripts or coming up with pitches for different games, I'm drawing a lot from Octavia Butler, the legendary author who wrote all about the intersections of identity and imagination and teaching the principles of visionary fiction, which is something that I try to. If not capture, at least crudely ape uh, in all of my writing. Um, Visionary fiction is this beautiful idea that uh, standard science fiction does not usually have an interest in building something that is new and better and more free and more just. Standard science fiction is usually about the perils of going here, the perils of doing that, how things will break down. And even the more robust and optimistic examples, such as some of Star Trek, um, there is always that core of we are doing this despite ourselves. Um, where visionary fiction comes in is that it is all about trying to decolonize the imagination. Because if you can unshackle someone's imagination, you can open their eyes to liberation and freedom that they otherwise would have no context for and would have no way to imagine. So as much as we put like horrible, soul-crushing, hyper-capitalistic ideas into our world, I try to, or we both try to inject a little bit of levity, a little bit of, well, that's all horrible. But in other ways, in some places, um, things are better than you could ever imagine because you unfortunately do not have the context for it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's definitely a hard line that we ride, especially with like some of the stuff that we c- deal with right in the games. Um,
Mm,
I think we have, I think so far, all of our every story, despite how hard either I try as a GM or like, the dice or whatever try, um, like no matter how grim things ever seem, I think we still tend to find a way to bring that kind of optimism in it. Like Mothership, despite how the dice are going, still ended in what I personally feel to be a highly optimistic like way that things could have gone, like despite the fact that like
mhm,
you, the entire like I mean everybody died technically in that
right.
game, and we still had a happy ending by the end of it, which I
Yeah,
don't think by Mothership standards should be possible, but we did.
right, we fought for it.
Yeah.
We I don't think that story could have ended, in that tragic way and felt as satisfying as I think the ending did.
I
Um,
agree.
there was oh, the dice were not our friends, I will say that, especially mine.
Mhm.
Um, by the end of the first episode, I had so much stress built up in that game that at any given moment, Kendo could have said, "Hey, roll a check to see if you have a heart attack." We ran
Mhm.
3 episodes of that game, and my stress never got below that threshold.
Yeah. And we actually, I think after the first game, we ended up having everyone make backup characters because we were
Yes.
like, what if everyone dies too soon?
Right, and because after the first game, I don't know if you planned for this, but I was fully under the impression that we would be on the ship and working our way through the ship by the end of the first episode. We
That's
could
kind of
not
what I was
get on.
expecting. Yeah, no, because the dice were just so bad to you all. They were so bad. They wanted you all to die so badly.
It
And yeah,
took
because that
a
was
lot.
yeah, I'm glad that we added the buffer day because we were like, it's a 2 to 3 session game. We're gonna plan for two, but we'll have this third just in case. And we definitely needed it.
Mhm. 1,000%. I'm glad we had that wiggle room.
Yeah.
Um, so with that said, uh, shall we dive into Sunlight?
Yeah, let's Sunlight Askew. The first character ever conceived of that exists in this world.
Mhm,
Um I think so. If I'm remembering correctly, I think the idea of sunlight came from the fact that for promos, I tend to do um, visualizers or like some kind of auditory thing that can hook someone by give them a little tease. And I had the idea because the streams were going to be after the promos needed to be. There was this space that was needed of okay, what do these promos feel like? And I also really desired for it to be like, I want it to have a particular voice, maybe like a consistent voice that would take us through all of these stories.
mhm,
And you and I talked, and I think we both kind of latched onto the idea of this being like a radio host of some kind. And I
right.
think you specifically had the idea, like, kind of started to create the kind of vague um, identities of who this person was. Um,
Mm.
and that, sorry,
No, I was just gonna say, I as I recall it, we went through a couple of different iterations of the character at first, and
yeah,
we were like floating different things around, but nothing quite seemed right. And then we both eventually like settled on, oh, we had Three Dog, who was super high energy and like if you've played Fallout or Fallout 3, I believe, you know Three
yeah,
Dog, the radio host who's very high energy, very excitable. And that just didn't quite work for all of the different things we wanted Sunlight to do and to be.
yeah. Yeah, and so we decided on a much more, not necessarily lower energy, like definitely as far as like much chiller vibe than Three Dog, but we also wanted someone who was kind of felt like they were not necessarily built like, there's something about Three Dog that feels separated, right, from
Hmm.
everyone else. He lives in this fucking radio tower where no one else lives. It's like it's just him, and it's him talking to people like listeners or whatever. And I think we wanted something kind of going along the optimistic route of of visionary fiction, of someone who put together this thing probably through the help of community like volunteers and community funding of like people like, hey, I listened to the show, here's some fundraising in that kind of way. Someone who
Hmm.
is much more in touch with the people that they were interacting with and doing the show for. Um, and then we also kind of came to the decision that like the show is in fiction, like all of the games and stuff that we're playing are things that are being played over the show that is produced in the static in fiction. So I guess
Hmm.
what we're doing right now is technically canon
Right. Technically,
in the
this
world.
whole conversation is us talking to Sunlight on Sunlight's radio show.
Yeah,
And, do with that what you will. And if that gets a little bit wibbly wobbly in the brain, well, it is what it
yeah,
is.
it is what it is.
Um, I now a little bit of trivia. Do you remember the other names before you landed on Sunlight? Because I remember that you gave me a list of names.
Oh, did I would have to go back and look. I don't remember.
All right. I'm going to read at least one because I remember when I saw this list, the first thing I think don't do this, kids, but I remember that I might have been driving at the time. And I saw the notification pop up with the names and it was cut off. But as soon as I saw Sunlight I knew that was the one.
Oh, wild. That's
And I
super
had to
cool.
pull over and message you and say Sunlight. That's pick that one. Sunlight Askew is the name.
Sunlight excuse the name, yeah. Because as some people might be able to tell, I tend to go by the friends at the table naming convention where you just put two words together and make a name. Because I think you get some of the most like interesting, like flavorful names from those, right? Because like names, like while technically names do have meanings, we're
Mhm,
usually so like separated from that because it's in languages that either we're not familiar with, or like in old meanings that are archaic to the point like my name is Kendrick is in like in English, I believe, that's like
mhm.
related to some old Germanic words, which just means like ruler or like lord or whatever, which is like that's dumb. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not dumb. It's it is what it is.
It's not
Um,
dumb, but it doesn't carry that when you say Kendrick today, it does not carry the
exactly.
meaning of the word that it originated from.
Exactly. And so like when you get words that like we all know, if you speak English, sunlight is familiar word, askew familiar word. And when you put them together, it has this interesting flavor of like who this person is.
Mhm,
Um and so that's why I tend to name things now more just words put together.
mhm. I as I recall, like, when I think of just the name Sunlight Askew, I what I'm imagining in my head is a beam of sunlight being scattered by a prism, and
Mhm.
you being able to pick out all of the individual parts that make up that beam of light. And that works beautifully with who Sunlight is as a character,
Mhm.
um, because Sunlight is so community oriented. Uh, One of the interesting things that I don't recall this may have been intentional or this may have just been an accident of the first couple scripts being written this way and then we decided that we liked it after the fact.
Mhm.
um, but Sunlight does not use personal pronouns. Sunlight, when talking about the audience, will never say you. Sunlight will always say we. um, and I think that works beautifully with this community oriented person who has just been wandering around, uh, essentially being an investigative reporter for
Yeah.
who knows how many decades.
Yeah. And then like also going along that as far as like personal pronouns, like Sunlight never uses I.
Hmm.
Z always uses third person pronouns for himself.
Hmm. Yeah, always third person pronouns, always concerned with not only themselves but their entire community. Everyone
Mhm.
who is within Sunlight Circle is considered part of the same whole.
Mhm. Which is, I love this character so much.
Right. And I'm glad their name is not Milou Matthews.
Was that one of
That was one of them.
Lou Matthews? Why did
We
I
had
write
Mid
that?
Hat Milou, Milou Matthews.
Oh, actually, okay, that first one is not mid hat.
Oh,
Uh
is it?
Malou. It's
What is it?
meat hot.
Mead Hot.
Um it's I one of my employees back when I was a project manager, older Bosnian fellow, his name, Meat Hot. And I
Oh,
thought it was a good, cool name.
that's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
Now that I know how it's pronounced, I like it even
Yeah,
more.
I guess reading it, you would just think it's mid hat. Yeah, that's, I
Yeah,
mean, totally fair. Yeah.
but no. Other stuff about Sunlight. Um, I think another thing that's interesting is as much as I've written from Sunlight's perspective,
Mhm.
I do not know much about Sunlight except what Sunlight has said on the show.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. I find that a bit appealing. I definitely wouldn't be closed to finding out more of Sunlight's character and past and backstory, but as it is, the way that I see Sunlight is through the lens of their work. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that sort of lends itself to uh, a sort of understanding of Sunlight in bits and pieces that I think helps capture their voice.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think, um I don't know about you, but I have no idea of what sunlight looks like.
Hmm.
I think I have an I like I have my own personal like idea of what they look like, and I'm very interested if you have like your own and
Hmm.
what similarities or differences we might have.
That's very interesting. When I think of Sunlight in my head, it is actually a void. I can think of what they might be wearing.
Okay.
Like, I can imagine that Sunlight probably has, an oversized cowboy hat, like, something that
Ooh,
doesn't
okay.
quite fit, but is good enough and keeps the sun off their back.
Mhm.
But build, skin tone, hair, all of that is, like, a dead zone for me.
Interesting.
I'd be curious to hear
My
yours.
my version of sunlight is that they are a synthetic person.
Hmm,
um and that I have no idea what the head looks like. That's a void to me. I have no idea what head or face looks like. I have no idea what they're wearing, but the only thing that sticks out in my mind about sunlight is that they have a perfectly cube body with a
mhm,
bunch of arms.
okay, yeah,
And it's like, and like the way in which things are set up in the studio are like in a circle around them and they interact with it in that kind of way, in like a ring around them. That's the only thing in my mind that has stuck out as far as like what sunlight might look like.
mm. That's interest like, the idea of Sunlight being synthetic, either, partially or entirely, that is something that I think we've both considered just because
Mm-hmm.
we never really mention what Sunlight is doing physically. Like, we never really get into detail on the physicality. It's not like Sunlight is clambering up rocks or,
Yeah.
uh, leaning on a staff, nothing like that. So, the fact that Sunlight never mentions their physical body, like, that does not enter into any of the scripts,
Mm-hmm.
even to, like, we don't have a limb count.
Yeah, no. And like here's the thing, even my like image of them changes. Like the number of
Yeah.
films always change it. And like there's times where like I see them just like in like a room doing it. And then there's often times where I imagine them just like in a cabin somewhere
Oh yeah.
where like I'm always imagining like wooden window, uh sunlight like looking out and the board there, and like it's constantly changing my view of them and like where they're at. Sometimes it's more like technical than like other times it's just like wooden cabin somewhere or like in a
Hmm.
camper and like sitting outside, very what's it called, Moonlight Gospel-esque.
Mm,
um there's like a bunch of different views that I have of them, but something about the like box like body and multiple arms stays relatively consistent.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting to like hear that because I agree, sunlight does seem very amorphous. Um, and also seems to cover such a wide variety of topics over such wide swaths of history. Um, like it's not impossible for a person to cover that period of history on their radio show, but it
Mhm.
does seem like sunlight has more of a personal connection to some of these events than they are letting on.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's any great mystery. I hope there's not people who are trying to make this into an ARG, because an unintentional ARG is not something you want to dip your head into, folks. Trust me on that.
There is no end in sight.
There is
You
no
will
end in sight. There
you
is
will
no cake.
theorize
There is,
yourself in circles.
yeah, exactly. Um, but they or excuse me, they have such wide ranging connections and knowledge that it would not be impossible for them to be more long lived than they let on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
God, love sunlight.
Anyone who has ideas on what Sunlight Askew should look like, uh, sense, draw 'em,
Tweet, draw,
tweet,
draw 'em.
draw.
Tweet, do whatever. I would love to
Yeah.
see them. Tweet it to at Tales Yet Told. Maybe hashtag it
Yeah.
Sunlight Askew.
Yeah, maybe hashtag sunlight askew, get that going. Remember, there's no wrong answers. The version of sunlight that exists in your heart is just as real as the version that exists in ours, as long as
100%.
they are not a bigot. That's the one thing sunlight cannot be.
Sunlight
Never
cannot
be a
be a
bigot.
bigot. Can't be a bigot. No bigots.
Um, God, I'm thinking of some of the previous versions where we had more of like a bitter, uh, sort of like a bitter radio host, and how that would not have played as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Uh, so with that, I would love to go a little bit more into the story so far and just sort of
Yeah,
what we've done, what games we've played. Um, it has been a journey.
yeah, that's for sure. Um, started off with Microscope with my good
Microscope.
friends Gus and Marcy,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we kind of laid the foundation of the general timeline. Because yeah, also like in the conceptualization of prayers in the static, I also didn't have a sense. I almost didn't want it to be like a particular point in time of that the setting took place in. Like I wanted it to have a timeline, a history, because that also helps give it a little bit of depth there. And I wanted to be able to play games at like any point in that timeline. And so Microscope, the perfect game for it, right? You make a timeline as part of the game. Um,
Hmm.
and we really established some truly terrifying uh just some of the worst things, some very good things, some very good things creatively, very unique, very fun. Even some of the stuff that people decide to do, not the worst, but also some really god awful nonsense.
The Monkelbeche,
Is
which
that
is,
the name of it?
I believe so.
God,
Uh, Monk El Betchi.
hate it. I hate it.
This monstrosity is Apparently, the volume of 4 blue whales, uh, with 3 eel-like necks, an anglerfish head, the body of a shark, a scythe-like carapace, which I don't even know what that
I
means.
don't know what that
I
means.
don't know what a scythe-like I know what a carapace is. It's like it's essentially the exoskeleton. It's the layer on the outside of an insect.
Yeah,
How can that be scythe-like? Is
I
I
don't know.
have to imagine that there are scales
I
that
guess
are
razor sharp
curved.
that curve inward. So the body itself would also, it would have to be like an eel like
Mhm,
body where it like kind of concaves, I think is the word, at like either
right.
end of it.
Because sharks do have, unidirectional like, they've got, like, a sandpaper texture skin. Um,
Yeah.
so that could be what this is. However, it is at a scale where you do not say sandpaper, you say scythe-like, and I find that deeply personally disturbing and difficult for
Yeah.
me to square with Christ.
Because because it would have to seem like perfectly smooth, and like if you like rubbed your hand on it one way it would be perfectly fine, but as soon as you did it the other direction it would just
Right,
slice into your skin, which I guess would be good for predator, like waving off like predators, especially if it is a thing that is chasing you and it has to eat you from the direction in which you are the sharpest.
right. Although, with the size of this thing at multiple blue whales in volume,
Yeah, I
I
don't think
don't
it
think
has
it's in
many
any great
predators.
danger.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what the benefit of it being a scythe like is. Scythe then is.
It's a creature that exists to befuddle our minds and
Yeah.
terrify anything that goes near the water.
Yeah, no, accurate. Very accurate.
Um, but no, playing Microscope and putting together this timeline was such a blast. I remember we had to do a second episode, which I don't think that we anticipated.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
That was
we
a lot of fun.
yeah, because I mean, we went really in depth with everything that we were doing, and so turns just took longer, which is what happens when you're having fun. So
Mhm. Especially
yeah,
when you have so many talented role players on the stream and you give them the ability to create and then act out their own scenes.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think the game that we just played, the most recent, Echo, really benefited from that. Um,
Mhm.
because I think like rules is written, it's not really like you don't have scenes where you role play out each thing. You just kind of tell the information and give some detail. But the story is mainly out through that. And we ended up role playing whole scenes and like had character growth in
Right.
development, which is like not what the game is necessarily made for, but like it doesn't work against it either. So
Yeah. I think once we started role playing, I don't think we stopped. I think we just did
yeah,
the rest of the episode in our characters and had a
yeah,
blast with it.
yeah. Other than rolling dice, we were in character basically the whole time.
Yeah. Uh Microscope is also a game that has a lot of very interesting optional rules and a lot of cool things that allow you to re-examine things through different lenses. The fact that you can have a scene that says something and says like, "Oh, this is what occurred. The king disappeared one night from the tower and was never seen again," and then somebody else can follow that up with, uh,
King
a
shit up.
castle guard searching for the king, or like the king deciding to go and live as a peasant on a farm. And
Yeah,
those things are not in conflict. It's just you adding context to the story. As long as it does not necessarily come into direct conflict, it just works well.
yeah, agreed. And that really like there was a lot of really cool stuff that came out of that game. That like just the building on ideas. Like I mean, part of the way that the Monkel Becci kind of showed up was because we had previously established. Wait, did we establish the zoo before? Yeah, no, we did. We
Mhm.
established world class menagerie where Zodiac Tech uh, created 44 augmented animal species and over 100 augmented plant and fungi species. Um, and then like we established that, and then it's like, yeah, like a couple hundred years later, that ends up biting us in the ass because now
Right.
we have these super evolved and mutated creatures that are just various mashups of whatever Zodiac decided to pump into their genes.
Right. This is how you get kaiju, and this is why, or at least in part, you build mechs to fight
Yeah,
kaiju. You got to have kaiju to have mechs. The two go hand in hand. Peanut butter
yeah,
jelly. You can't have one. If you have one without the other, you're gonna feel like you're missing something.
exactly. Which is why the I think it's established in our timeline. Earth comes up with mechs first.
Hmm.
Part because they have to use them to fight these kaiju.
Yep. Yep, they
Yeah.
live on the danger world. They do not have the advantage of a hermetically sealed environment where they are in at least some control over the autonomous systems of their world. They just kind of have to deal with it, come as they are.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and that's why they get to mechs first because they had a serious need.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but like, as soon as the other, as soon as the outer colonies get it or like see it, they're like, oh, wait, that's a thing we could have done? Wait,
Mm,
hold on. And then they start doing it as well. And I think a thing that we touch on in Echo, but we haven't really fully explored quite yet, is the different ways in which different cultures create mechs and like the different
mhm,
styles in which they do. So the two different styles that we have are the Earth sphere. I would just say Earth base because I don't know if the entire Earth sphere uses the same philosophy, but
right.
they almost probably wouldn't because it would be incredibly ineffective and very inefficient for space.
Mm,
But all of the Earthbound mechs are based or Earth Earth based mechs are all based or influenced by animals. They are like there's Zoids basically, where you've got tiger mechs, you've got rabbit mechs, and like they don't necessarily always look exactly like the thing that they're emulating, but they
mhm.
have key traits of them. I think you made the design for the first mech that exists.
Right. So the first mech that they come up with is essentially a hare or a rabbit. And to sort of like pay homage to that aspect of its design philosophy, it has very reduced in function and size arms and large legs. And it also has pile bunkers in the legs to simulate uh, the thumping that hares and rabbits do. Um,
Hmm.
and, did it need to be that? No. But I think that people aesthetics play a role, and your
Hmm.
inspirations for your designs can appear in those designs relatively faithfully without harming the efficacy of the design.
Yeah.
And Earth has all these crazy animals around, all these kaiju just floating about. So they are a little bit more culturally influenced by them, and that appears in a lot of different places, including mechs.
Yeah. And so the other side of this is we haven't seen any of the outer nations or even technically the rest of the Earth sphere design, but we do have a little bit of insight into the kingdom of Astra, our
Hmm.
space fascists. um uh Not too dissimilar in theme of the nation of Xeon, but yeah, the nation of Xeon. um
Right.
and the way that like their design philosophy behind mechs is like seeing mechs and the technology that they specifically use for it as a way to enhance the self and enhance humanity to a point of being worthy of being made from the stars, being there with the stars. All things are made of stardust. And they are from the Jovian sphere, all the
Hmm.
way out by Saturn. You know,
Yeah.
they have absolutely no connection with the people of Earth. They haven't had anyone who has even been like outside of like probably some dignitaries or whatever. Like the vast majority of people don't know anyone from Earth, haven't had a family member from Earth, who like has had no contact with Earth media, Earth culture, or anything for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
Why would they have any form of allegiance or connection to the people of Earth?
Right.
Um, and so they see themselves as people like people from space, people of the stars, with the stars, from the stars, and so they are like their their kind of cultural attitude is kind of built around this idea of being untethered from gravity. So
Yep.
much so that the soul becomes unchained
Yes. You
from
must
gravity.
unchain the soul from the body because the body is influenced by gravity. And
Mhm.
if you, the more freedom that you can obtain from your earthly form that is affected by something as simple as the forces of gravity, doesn't that just make you better?
It does,
Yeah.
because
You can
you are
fly.
free. You can fly. You are free. You can go wherever you want. Free like a bird.
Hmm.
People on the ground, people with bodies on that gravity shit,
Hmm.
they they're not like you. They're built different in the worst possible way.
Hmm. They don't even know how much their allegiance to living on a planet in a gravity well is holding them back. They don't know.
Yeah. Their entire society is built around the fact that they have gravity. They
Mhm,
can't
mhm.
even imagine what it's like to be untethered. We're talking visionary fiction. The vision here is being untethered. Gravity's such a drag. You're right, Phoenix. Gravity fucking sucks. And in order to be able to envision a better world, a better society, a better way in which to be, you must first open the imagination of those around you to be able to understand, to envision a better way of living, a better human. And
Right.
so, join the kingdom of Astra or die.
Join the kingdom of Astra,
Yeah,
and you too can be untethered.
you too
So,
can be
just,
untethered.
get on that. Um, but
Yeah.
our elevator pitch for the kingdom of Astra aside, um, the differences between Astra and Earth, and really all of the different planetary bodies, which I'm hoping to explore further. Well, I say
Yeah,
hoping. I don't have
we
to hope.
will.
I can just do it.
Yeah, we could just do it. We're just
I can
like,
just
oh,
do it.
we're going to
Yeah, we
do
can
it.
just do
Well,
it.
look, we're doing a Mars game. Like,
We're
yeah,
doing
we
a
could just
Mars
do
game. Why
that.
not? But the differences in like how their how the material realities of their lives affect the way that their culture develops and the way that their social structures develop. Um, on Earth, I don't believe this is any grand spoiler to say, but on Earth there is this hyper it's not overpopulation because as we know, overpopulation is often a myth and a tool used to oppress uh, the minority groups.
Yeah,
But Earth has such a population density that new social structures take hold. The idea of having 10 to 15 people who are essentially your life housemates, your life partners, not in the sense that you necessarily choose to go through your life with them, but your life partners as in these are the 15 people that you are with, that you will be with for the rest of your natural life, because the population density is such that this is necessary if you want to live here. Um,
mhm.
and sort of the way that changes how people relate to each other. People can get implants such as I believe it's co-opt.
Yeah,
Co-opt
co-op,
allows you to
not
essentially
co-opt. It's
create
co-op.
a hive mind. Oh, it's co-op.
Yeah,
Okay, it essentially allows you to create an in situ hive mind by taking a bunch of presumably just random people, and they all get the implant, they all get the software, and they are essentially able to communicate with each other as if they were part of the same body.
yeah,
And why they would choose to do that and how they would choose to do that and what that means for the way that their lives play out is, I think, fascinating.
yeah. Absolutely. I think also in us talking about this, there's a part of me that goes, "Is Sunlight Askew a co-op?"
Sunlight Askew could be a co-op.
Could be.
Yeah.
Totally could be. But like, yeah, no, and I think and like something, I think one of the things that I really really like about the way in which we're building this setting, and one thing I really really loved about Microscope is because you could directly see like how things linked to each other in a certain way. And one of the things that I really love is that the idea of co-op, right, which is this idea of a chosen community, a specifically a chosen relationship between multiple people, ranging on, I think the max we have is 52.
Mhm,
And there is this idea of like those 52 people chose to be together. There's this communal nature to it. There's this positive relationship, allegedly, right? In the best sense of it. Um, and there is this consensual feeling for it, right? That feels kind of
mhm.
good about it. There are also
Yeah,
ways in which this can be corrupted, um,
right. And
and
I
used for
think the
bad.
origins of it are in capitalism, are in like a hyper capitalist hellscape that requires you to basically like sign over your body to the company for your shift.
Yeah,
Um, and
it's
I
a,
believe that was
it's optional. It's optional.
okay.
You don't
Not
have to.
requires,
It's not required.
encourages you.
Yeah, exactly. And they encourage you to buy benefits for like
Right.
marginal uh,
Mhm.
uh, financial benefits. Maybe some better healthcare. They upgrade your healthcare because just in case something goes wrong.
Right. I mean,
um,
they're going to be remote piloting your body, so it's only
exactly.
natural that they take a slightly increased liability.
Exactly. And so the idea of co op came from Clocked Out, which was an optional um, program that was created by similarly having a chip uh, implanted in your nervous system, which allowed your consciousness to be booted up to, whatever server the company has, and allowed you to explore a digital space and like kind of do whatever you want for the time of your shift. You're essentially on the internet
Mhm.
during your shift. While that's happening, you are also your physical body is being piloted by a either an actual person puppeteering all of the clocked out people performing their jobs, or an AI, or whatever whichever way that company chooses to manage their kind of clocked out situation
Mhm.
is company by company. But bare bones of it, your body is being piloted by someone or something else to perform your duties, while you consciously don't have to deal with it. You can do whatever you want. And
Yeah.
so, great for
Catch up
company
on movies.
efficiency. Yeah, exactly. Read your favorite book. You've always been wanting to do that writing project. You can do it while on the clock. But someone is going to be uh, uh, manipulating heavy equipment and machinery with your body, with you having no ability to be able to protect yourself
Yeah.
purely on them. But
You know,
healthcare.
it'll be fine.
So,
It'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
There's never been an issue that wasn't settled in court. But at, to just sort of build on the like the social implications of this technology. Um Co-op and to a lesser extent clocked out, mostly co-op, you could presumably have a co-op agreement, a co-op setup in your personal life with your polycule or something similar to that. And what that would essentially allow is, all right, everyone knows where the polycule is at all times. The polycule is a hive mind. They can share senses. If one member is able to cook really well and the other one isn't, share that skill. If
Mhm.
one knows how to fix a car, all right, yeah, I'll borrow your body for a second, or I will. You can borrow my knowledge. You can borrow my information, and this would mean that if the one who knows how to drive leaves the polycule, you actually have a problem.
Yeah,
You cannot
100%.
just take public transportation. Well, because we the nine of us, we don't know how to drive anymore, so somebody should should just go
We
take that
either need to
test.
Need to learn how to drive right now, or we need to get Bumble again.
Yeah, get on Bumble. Everyone, look. So filter by can drive.
Can drive open to co-op. Oh man, imagine the way that oh my god, imagine the way that dating sites would change.
Yeah,
With the introduction of co-op. You can have the ability like, yep, I'm open to doing a co-op situation.
yep,
And like might have like I don't do any more than four people. Like the culture that like arrives out of that of people having to interact with that system. And then like the co-op only dating sites and then the no co-op sites and like
no
the way in
co-op
which
sites.
people would now have like an opinion on what they think of hive minds as a valid relationship. They're going to be completely like they're going to be sending memes on whatever social media of like anti co-op and then there's going to be like and then there's going to be cultures around like co-op phobia and like hive mind phobia of
Mhm.
like people like oh my god the way in which this new
That's
form of
the beauty of
relationship
this.
completely changes the dynamic of how people think of relationships.
Yeah, you set up
Ugh.
simple rules. You set up a couple of key features, and just those few simple rules can create infinite complexity given enough time, given enough space.
Mhm.
And that's part of why I think this series as an anthology works so well, because we can set up rules in Microscope that go into Echo, and set up rules in Echo that go into Tech Noir, that go into Cyberpunk. It's this beautiful interconnected web of information that is constantly growing.
Yeah.
Um, and with that said, we are going to jump over to our first break, grab a drink, grab a snack, and we will see you in, let's call it 5.
Yeah, let's call it 5.
All right. We will see you in 5. We. Hello, welcome back. Hope you are feeling hydrated and strong and well stretched. I don't know.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Y'all hanging in there? We're hanging in there. Got
Mm-hmm.
some water to refresh the old pipes and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
jump back into it. So right before the break, we were talking about the first game we played, Microscope. And now I believe we're going to talk about the second, which was Mothership, Majesty and Agony. This was a challenging game.
Oh, to say the least. The dice, I've said it already, but the dice hated you all this game. Really wanted to see you die.
Yeah. So, Mothership, for those who don't know, uses a D100 system. Essentially, you roll two D10s, one for your tens place, one for your ones place, and you have stats that are set at certain numbers that are affected by your equipment and your skills, but that are you need to roll under to accomplish tasks. So that means that if you have a 50 in a stat, as long as you roll under 50, you're good. You get a
Mm-hmm.
favorable outcome for the most part, unless you have a there's like criticals and all that, but that's a little bit deep into the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with Mothership is that there is a lot. I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of numbers between 0 and 100. There are a lot of opportunities for you to fail. And when you have a 30 in a stat, your odds are essentially 70-30 that you will
Hmm.
fail.
Hmm.
It is hard. And everything causes stress, which is one of the ways that
Yeah,
the facilitator, who I believe is called the warden in Mothership, is able to, you know, just kind of inflict some damage on your characters.
I will say. So part of this is my fault, and part of this is the game's fault. I will say. In the base book of Mothership, somewhere back there,
Hmm.
in the base game of Mothership, there are no GM tips whatsoever. It does not tell you how to run this game. It tells you how to like enforce the rules by being like, oh, the GM does this whenever, blah blah blah.
Yep.
Game does not tell you how to play this game, like how to run this game. Doesn't tell you how to make creatures. Doesn't tell you how to, best practices for when running. Doesn't
Hmm.
tell you when to like. It doesn't tell you how much stress to give when someone fails. And so, because everything in the game was a D10 roll, I was like, all right, I guess it's a D10. Sometimes if I felt it was a little much, I'd have it. But like it doesn't tell you. And then from reading other things after that game, like things should do like every time you fail, you're like, oh, you take one stress for that.
Right. But
But
it
the
was a
game doesn't.
logical assumption to think that you would roll a d10 because it's a d100.
That's
You
what
have your
everything
d10s in
else
front of you.
is.
Everything else is
Yeah,
d10s.
yeah.
But
When you all roll damage, it's D10. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes the most sense.
you're right.
That's not how the
And
game's supposed to
unfortunately,
work.
what that resulted in is within the first three, I think I failed three rolls, and that put me into the next roll I fail. If
You
Kendo
would
is to
have a heart
call
attack.
me for a stress, or excuse me, a panic check, I will auto fail the check and my character will have a heart attack.
Hmm.
And I stayed there pretty much throughout the entire series from that point. There
Yep.
was one point, I believe, between episode 1 and 2 where I lost a little bit of stress after like I
Yeah, I
can't
think
even
you
remember
used
what
a
it
first
was.
aid thing
The first
to
day.
no, the first aid.
Oh, okay,
You
yeah.
gave yourself like a stim pack or something, I believe.
Right. And that helped a little bit. That brought me down to
Hmm.
like I could take one more stress roll before I hit that threshold to auto fail.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of things that cause stress in this game.
Hmm. And if you're only increasing it by like one, maybe two to three every time, that number of what that stim pack remove makes way more sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because you should
100%.
because if you're rolling by D10, like at most, like it rids like 1 point of that, like that's nothing.
Hmm.
So
So
made a lot more
that was a
sense.
challenge.
That was a
Um,
challenge, I would agree.
but narratively, Mothership was very, very interesting.
Hmm.
Partially because of how harsh we thought the game systems were. They are harsh, but not quite as harsh as we made it. Um,
Hmm.
from the get go, there was the understanding that we might fail this mission, which was essentially to stop a runaway ship that was going to crash into a colony. And um, we needed to discover either what was going on or, at the core of it, just stop it from occurring. Um, and that mission was looking to be we didn't think we were going to accomplish that mission because by the end of episode 1 we still couldn't get on the ship, but that sort of like almost gallows humor that we were forced to approach the entire game with led to a lot of very interesting things, especially aboard our trusty ship, the SS Big Sexy.
Great name.
A wonderful name. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but that is not the first iteration of the SS Big Sexy. I believe that you may have also heard this if you have watched Starlight Tales, Tales from the Dead Zone. Is that the title?
Yeah.
Tales from the
I
Dead
think
Zone.
it's just Dead Zone.
Dead Zone, excuse me.
Mhm.
Uh, the ship in Dead Zone, Mitsuki actually
Mitsuki's.
nicknames Big Sexy
Are
in the
you
first
kidding
episode
me?
of Dead Zone.
Are you kidding me? Joe did
Nope.
it twice?
Joe got away with it twice.
She can't keep getting away with it.
We gotta put a stop to it.
We gotta put a stop to it.
We gotta get a
That's
list of references together, and every time one comes out, we gotta say, nah, I know
no.
where that's from.
That's so funny. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That's so
I started
fucking
that
funny.
today, and I did a physical in real life spit take at that, which is
That's so funny.
if you haven't done a
Oh.
spit take in real life, don't. It is not funny and not pleasant when you do it, even with water, because you have to clean that up.
That's so funny. Oh my god. But yeah,
But
no.
yeah, the getting aboard the SS Big Sexy was a, a the first time where I really felt like the tension as we met the crew, Balthazar, Stinky Jim, um, and like quickly realized nobody on this ship has the stats that are going to pull us through this.
Mhm.
And uh, now there was another thing that Joe did in that episode that I could never have anticipated, which was the classic literature on board the Big Sexy.
When
Now, this
Joe
is
said
difficult to
that,
talk about, even.
when Joe when Joe brought out the Playboys,
Yep.
I knew that this was going to be a great game
Right.
because
Yeah.
I think it was the first time because like right before it, you all are in the meeting with Scorpio. Wait, was it Scorpio?
I believe so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scorpio, a member of Zodiac Holdings, um, who gave them the mission to go stop this ship. Um, like that whole part is introductory. You all are just kind of getting in like the feet of your characters. You're just saying like how they're interacting with each other, how they're interacting with their circumstance. But like I think you all came into your characters getting aboard the ship and where we saw like the fun dynamic between them, like that really set in stone. Okay, these are people that I'm going to care about. Was you all was everyone's reaction to the Playboys?
Mm. And I'm so glad that we had Oleander, Stray Nerd Boy, with us,
Hmm.
because the immediate tone setter that was this very serious, reserved, uh, German accented character Cam saying, "Ah, yes, these are uh, relics."
They
The
aren't. They
tone.
they haven't been able to be printed in hundreds of years. These are
Beautiful.
artifacts. Oh, it was so good. The way it immediately been like, okay, these are going to be fun characters.
Hmm.
This is gonna fucking suck getting through, but like at least we're going to enjoy the people who it is happening to. Um,
Yep.
it was that's such a good group. I would love to play with the three of you again. Like I think like that's just like a great group of people right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think every person on that game brought every person on on that game from the jump understood the energy to bring, and then
Hmm.
everything about the game reinforced and supported that.
Yeah.
Where the gallows humor that is inherent to such a deadly game uh,
Hmm.
just really supported the characters and the story that we were telling. Where it is comical to have five people go on this mission to save millions. It's ridiculous. It's comical. You
Right.
wouldn't. Why would you do that? You're setting them up for
You
failure.
100%. Almost like if somebody wanted it to fail.
Right. Almost like somebody wanted to make some like cursory effort, like, okay, let's say we tried, but not really. Let's not try too hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. God. And I think one thing I do like about that game is this like we never really like like poke it too much, but like it is definitely there and is understood about the story, like the effect that these corporations have on the world and like the people around them. Like I don't
Hmm.
think like there's at no point is it like the corporation, like it's not like that, like how Alien really like fucking like hounds on it, like the corporation is like the cause of this.
Yeah.
um and like why this situation, it's like it's there, it's subtle, it's like, you know, you all are only there because a corporation hired you. All of the other commodores that ended up like getting there and being like victims to what has happened only happens because a corporation hires them. Hell,
Hmm.
the whole thing only happens because a corporation tried to skirt by and do some really shady shit, and some really like amoral happens, all because corporations are interested in like getting more profits, right? Being able
Right.
to commodify this thing and find a way to make money off of it, despite the dehumanizing, absolutely inhumane actions it takes to even get to that point. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like all
And
of it is just like kind of there, but like never really too harked on.
one part of that is that there is never a government in the room.
Hmm.
It is purely between corporations and private contractors. There's never even mention of a world government being involved in this incident because they're not.
Yeah.
They truly have been like so defanged that they are not even a player in the room. They don't need to be consulted. They don't need to be brought in a advisory capacity. The corporations are doing whatever they're doing and they're hiring people to clean up their messes on their own. And there's just this implicit understanding that there's no one that is holding them accountable besides their shareholders. And their
Yeah.
shareholders can't hold them accountable for what they don't know about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Man.
that game was amazing. And I think it was I you did a wonderful job showing the moral complexity of this world. And I I will say that I did have some regrets about how I played Dr. Imho Bridge. I think
Understood.
that that character was just a little bit too difficult to redeem because
Hmm.
once you have a character who is involved in human experimentation, even if it's like, oh, they are the person who keeps the human experiment in good shape or in
Hmm.
good health, that's not a character that can come back from that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Like yeah, I 100% agree with you. I don't like I agree with there being like some slight regret to it. I mean, I can't, you know, you feel what you feel and, you know, I feel what I feel. Um I think there is a part of me that does like the possibility of some kind of relationship between the test subject, and the doctor, and like
Mhm.
seeing like what that ends up becoming, right? Does like, you know, is there ever a point that, you know, 2331 like is able to have like even like in the slightest like a
Mhm.
positive connection with the doctor, in like an aligning of goals and philosophy and vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that leans into the theme of restorative justice and how people can be essentially returned to dignity when they have fallen to a place of disgrace. And I'm very curious to see like how that could occur, how this person who has such a negative view of a person who was perhaps if not directly involved, sort of like tangentially related to the harm that they experienced, and
Yeah.
how you reconcile that.
Yeah.
And the themes of reconciliation just go throughout that whole game. With Nico and the unresolved tension of refusing that promotion for so long and just staying in that rut of I don't want to be responsible for more people, so I'm not going to take this promotion.
Hmm.
No matter what you say about how much I could be useful or how many people I could help, I do not trust myself in that position.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think even in the way that like Sorry, I kind of. Oh, sorry. Yeah, even in the way that, like the Rejoice of Pearl, and like from going to like that same kind of hope that there is a way that a person can redeem themselves, to be able to
Hmm.
make up for the actions that they've done, maybe not necessarily atone for it, right, but be able to make steps to undo the wrongs that they have done. And
Yeah.
the while not necessarily, like, while also a victim in this situation, the Rejoice of Pearl does terrible, terrible things to people in the
Hmm.
short time that it has existed, right? And I think we see by the end, like, this ability to, like, to understand the wrong that it has done, and like truly understand, like, oh, I really hurt some people, to like have and like have taken things into my own hands in a way that is completely against any kind of respect that I claim to be having for this other person. um but we see by the end of it, like, making that step, trying to rebuild that connection, trying to, like, being like wanting to go out and try to find a home for all of these things, and maybe trying to cultivate this new kind of life, that
Hmm.
is that is beginning to be birthed from the intersection of 2331 and artificial life,
Right.
and then also artificial life with itself, because I kind of hint at it over it, but like we never really get into it. But like by the end of Majesty and Agony, I would say that like Cam is completely sentient. Like Cam is
Yeah.
on the same level of the Rejoice of Pearl by that point, and he never has an interaction with 2331, but it has this similar kind of new type ask virality of like just the nature of it interacting with itself, and like similar things to it help elevates the other similar life around it through that
Right.
communal action of just talking.
Yeah. No, you definitely get the sense that 2331 has some sort of latent inherent ability to awaken consciousness, but that is not the only path to it. There are
Mhm.
other modes that by which you can get there. Maybe it takes a little longer, maybe it's a little bit more difficult, but there's nothing lesser about the form of sapience that Cam reaches. Um,
Mhm.
and it was fascinating to see Cam sort of start as this, what I thought was already a very compelling and convincing character, and to develop beyond that, and to like try to identify, okay, well, Cam already felt sapient, so what is the difference? And the difference fundamentally is that now Cam feels sapient. Now Cam believes in their own
Mhm.
sapience in a way that they didn't previously.
Yeah.
And perhaps there has also been some fundamental shift in the way that their mind functions. But the important part is that perception of themselves as sapient.
Mhm. Yeah. That was a great game.
It
Very
was a
good
great
game.
game. Mothership is a very compelling system, and I would love to play that sometime again. But I think that a lot of the systems in Mothership do sort of lend themselves to a bit more pulp sci-fi, a bit more like
Yeah.
ray guns and Alien, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was Mothership, and don't
This is
forget that
Mothership.
if you've missed any of these, go check out the VODs. Go check out the
Yeah.
if you wanna plug the channel real quick.
Yeah, no, I'm pulling it up right now. What's the Bars and Brews YouTube? Sorry, action button. Oh, pause. I'm looking for a different thing.
I know,
Action button,
but
please. Stop.
there's so many great things on the channel.
Oh, there
There
we go.
are other series, but there's also us, and we're
There's
there.
also us. We are there together.
Is that gonna? Oh no, it got through. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I'm a mod, so it
Okay,
allows me to post links.
gotcha.
Yep.
Cool, cool, cool. But yeah. So moving on from Majesty and Agony, we come to the most recent game, and that was Echo. So
Yeah,
coming up on the Rust We Leave Behind. This was a blast. This was with a space job and Nathan Reckless Attack.
yeah. Nathan Reckless Attack, first last
All right.
name.
Yeah. Nathan. I mean, as far as I know.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Um, it was a blast. Echo is a map making game where a group of children find a an Echo drive, which is essentially a small machine or a small hard drive that has a pilot soul on it. And they need to get that Echo drive back to its mech so that it can reach its final rest. And you describe uh, the mechs that you come across along the way in a way that allows you to build a sort of uh, impromptu philology of like the species of mechs that exist uh, and
Yeah.
create a very compelling story. Um, so yeah, I had a great time with it. How did you feel about Echo?
Oh yeah, no, it was super cool. And I really love that it gave us the like actually the opportunity to really dive into something that we knew would exist before we even played Microscope. We were like, Mech's gotta be in the game. Come on, like
Right,
Gundam is the birth of this thing. Mechs have to be in it in some way, shape, or
mechs
form.
have to.
Yeah, and because of where um, Majesty and Agony falls on the timeline, Me- no, Mex would be there. Mex would be in that part of the timeline.
Right.
But because of like what we were dealing with, yeah, like why
Yeah.
would there be Mex
Yeah.
there?
You're not going to send a mech. A mech's not going to be able to push the ship out of the way.
Yeah, yeah, no, huh.
It's not going to happen.
No, no, no. So the like the fact that we were able to finally like give these mechs form, give them life in some way was super super cool, and I really like the ones that we came up with because
Yeah.
we very easily like, and I'm glad that we got to see like what the Astrid mechs looked like because that was the one thing I really wanted them to feel very different
Hmm.
from the Earth Sphere mechs at the very least, and like I think we pulled that off like amazingly.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Um, Getting to examine just a few of the mechs and sort of like what their deal was and like how the pilot who I was playing felt about the mechs and what they remembered about each mech
Mhm.
was it was very informative to the
Yeah,
setting. Starting with I believe the Blue Devil, was that the
the
first mech that
Green
we stumbled?
Devil.
Green Devil,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, I really, yeah, I like that. The only thing we know from this is that it's from Earth, because it's a claw, but it's not
Yep.
like a paw. It's like it is like a hand. Like it has an opposable thumb or an opposable digit at the very least. Um, and like outside of that, we don't like what is the animal that it's based off of in your mind? Because you're the one who named it.
I am the one who named it. Based off of the description, what I was imagining was sort of like the talons of a bird of prey. I was thinking that this might
Interesting.
even be like a sort of like griffin like mech or something that was not quite a bird but also wasn't quite like humanoid. It was if I recall correctly, the only like identifying factor really is there is a hand that has claws.
Yeah, huh, that's really interesting. For me, it looked like a Tasmanian devil because it had devil in
Mm,
the name, and so I was imagining it like this large, like they're not rodents, are they? They're
I believe they're
uh,
marsupials.
yeah, so like this large, like kind of sharp clawed thing with a big body. It could take a blow, but it was also fast and could like tear into steel with its claws.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
I
I
mean, that
also I
also
like the idea of it being like a bird of prey esque. Because the other day I was thinking of like, oh, what would a falcon mech look like? Would it have wings that flapped, or would it have um like thrusters, or like would it have like a wing thing that it does? But like it was the thing that was going on through my head. So
yeah.
interesting that, yeah.
No, I think that's an interesting question. Like the way that we have it set up, it's essentially uh we don't really need to think of purpose built mechs because I think when you're building mechs, I'm going to be honest. Like,
Purpose comes second.
let's cut away
Aesthetic
for a
comes
second.
first.
Aesthetic comes first. And
Yeah.
also, mechs are not the most efficient mode to space-based combat. They just aren't. We can be
No,
honest about that and still
they're
think
not.
they're cool. So
Exactly.
when you're doing this, it's partially or perhaps primarily for the shock and awe factor.
Yeah.
Um, and that it comes through with the Green Devil, which uh, hundreds of years after it was used is now a meeting place for local townspeople to come together from various different municipalities and villages to say, okay, we're going to call a meeting here. This is a great landmark. It yeah, it's a relic of the war, but it's convenient and it juts up above the landscape.
Mm-hmm. God,
Yeah.
so cool.
I quite love the way that Echo it creates these spaces where there are the remnants of war that have been repurposed in
Mm-hmm.
the most mundane ways.
Yeah. God.
And I would love to just talk a little bit about the characters because
Ooh,
these
yeah.
characters were amazing. Now, I
Out of
think I have the
nowhere.
name right. I have Accident Flock, played by you,
Played by me.
the most sad boy on
But he was
possible.
so not sad though. He
So
was so
not sad,
happy and
but
jovial and
everything
full
that
of life.
Accident said was just soul crushing to me.
Yeah. It's kind of
Anytime
like,
Accident mentioned their family,
are you familiar with Fred? I mean, like you probably know Fred.
like Fred, the YouTube
The
sensation,
YouTuber. Yeah, 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 yeah. Are you
never got into it.
familiar? Okay. I recently I watched a documentary about Fred.
Mm,
Um and apparently the actual content of Fred is incredibly depressing. It's like he's like comes from like
really?
a very bad home, constantly bullied, like is like there's like drug use and like alcohol and like there's like a like it's like supposed to be like a really like it's from the eyes of someone who's really young, not understanding like all of it's really weird and strangely and deep for what I thought Fred was. um
Wow.
but it's like kind of like that where it's like you would not be able to tell upon like intersecting with this person and meeting with them like exactly what's going on in their life, but as they continue to say things you're like, hold on a second. What?
Right. Do you know that's bad?
Do
Do you
you
know
know
that's
that's
not
bad?
how that's supposed to be?
Yeah, and I like that there's a part of Accident that does understand it but does not let it get them down. It's like,
Right.
it's like, yeah, my parents aren't the best, but like they're not the worst.
Right. At the very least, they are keeping you fed.
Yeah,
They might
exactly.
not
Like,
check on you for, like, days at a time, like, you sorta seem to have free reign of the wastes, but
yeah, we were able to just go like no problem with my parents, but no problem with anybody's parents,
no problem with
technically.
anybody's parents.
So,
Uh, the other 2 kids were equally interesting. Marcel Rainy Days as played by Reckless Attack,
mhm.
Nathan, Reckless Attack. Um,
Nathan underscore reckless
Nathan
attack.
underscore Reckless Attack?
Oh wait, sorry. No, you were saying
I was saying
as his
first and
name.
last name.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Is it actually Nathan underscore?
No,
Is it just Reckless Attack?
it's reckless underscore attack.
Reckless underscore attack, excuse me.
Yeah, that's where I
But
was getting confused. But yeah,
Marcel is incredible, and Marcel
yeah,
is part of the reason. Like Marcel is the driving force of the story because Marcel provides the opposing view of let's tell an adult.
yeah.
Marcel has the strongest snitch energy this side of the Sandlot.
Would not trust this kid with nothing.
You're right, exactly. You can't. You tell everyone else one story. You tell Marcel a different story.
Hmm.
Just if you want to prevent from getting grounded, that's just what you got to do.
Yeah, 100%.
And Bug by Space Job was great.
I
Um,
love Bug.
Bug is
Great.
so just a good kid.
Just a good kid, just there to vibe, have a good time. I feel like if I went to school with Bug and I would be friends.
Right. I'm trying to think back to 11. I think that I would have been friends with Accident, been friends with Bug, and then hung out with Marcel, but not told anyone I was hanging out with Marcel.
Oh,
And
damn.
I'm so sorry, but that is just the way it would have been. 11-year-olds are vicious.
No, that's totally fair. I think when I was 11, I might have been friends with Marcel.
Mm,
I I might have had like an on and off like kind of friendship with Accident. I'd probably be friends with Bug,
mm.
but
Bug's
I
the kind
think
of
I
kid
would
everyone's friends with, though.
exactly. No one's got a problem with Bug because she's just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then of course the pilot, which was Flick Stratus.
Masterfully
Um,
played by you.
Masterfully is a strong word. Now, here's the thing about Flicks. Flicks did not exist 6 minutes before we started the stream.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, none of the characters did.
Right, none of the characters did
Accident didn't exist until it was my turn
until it was your turn to talk.
to introduce my character.
And that level of improvisation, the fact that this game doesn't really have character creation, you just sort of just do
You
it
just do
on the
whatever you
spot.
want. Yeah.
Um, I think like actually kind of worked well for Flicks because whenever I was talking about like history of the war or whatever was going on, there was no way for me to have all of my notes open for things that I had previously written and also do the stream at the same time. So I
Mhm.
just started talking. And what that resulted in was like this 43-year-old man who left behind a son and daughter who he has no idea like if they had good lives even. Um and essentially like came on what he thought was going to be a fairly simple like smash and grab type mission. Didn't expect any combat even. Expected to come in, steal the mech, get out and be home in time for dinner essentially. Well, not in time for dinner. Transit
Yeah.
between Jupiter and Earth is
It's
still
Saturn.
quite
I'm
lengthy,
sorry.
but
Yeah.
be home for his kid's next birthday. Um and that mission just didn't go the way he planned. Um, he never got to leave Earth. He was stuck down here, uh, eventually was washed into a river and was then fished up by some random fisherman and, you know, went on this adventure with the kids to discover his old mech.
Yep.
Um, and like one of the things I didn't get to incorporate was that I thought that Flick Stratus was perhaps not that good of a soldier, not that good of a pilot at all. Um,
Interesting.
and that perhaps like his combat ability was subpar at best, but
Yeah.
his ability to fit in places, he was more of an infiltrator than anything. And
Oh,
I
that's
started with that.
the accent
That was the
changing.
accents change. And then I'm going to be honest, I forgot about that part as I just got so invested in the kids' personal lives and like your name is Accident? Your parents named you Accident?
It's
You
so
have a
good.
sibling named Mistake? What? Uh, are you okay?
See, I loved having favorite because it meant that the parent didn't just hate all the kids.
Right, right. No, that and it wasn't their firstborn. It was like it's smack dab in the middle, just like a
Somewhere in the
random
middle,
number.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, ah, this one's good. You others,
Uh, yeah.
but
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
no, you gone.
Oh, yeah. No, I was going to say, like, yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that we were because of the rules are so light, right? That like there's nothing saying that you can't do role play, but there's nothing necessarily implying that you should be doing or even encouraging you. But the fact that, we could means that like we were really able like this is our first look at to into what is the earth like post war.
Hmm.
Um and it's a little goofy, but it's also like I don't know. aside from the way that the kids interacted, I think the places that we ended up building really spoke to me
Hmm.
about like what's going on. You know, it almost feels like the game is. I mean, the game is technically through the point of view of the kids, right? But because
Right.
of that, like the way in which it's narrated is almost like we see the goofy, like kind of fun version of like the kids going on this adventure and this Goonie style kind of thing. Um, through their perspective in a like in a an unreliable narrator kind of sense where like the
Right.
reality probably isn't as goofy as it felt playing it, right?
Right.
These kids like are going to monuments like what are essentially graves for many people,
Hmm.
and like places that we kind of hint at are culturally important, um to everything that's going on around it.
Yeah. But they don't know the rules. They're kids. They
Exactly.
know what they need to know to like get by in their daily lives. So they know, when the adults are talking at the Green Devil, you don't bother them or else you'll get in trouble.
Exactly.
They know where some of the other mechs are because presumably these kids have either like played near them before or like seen them on trips. Maybe they're like going upriver to visit one of the other villages and they just happened to see them.
Mhm.
But like the way that they navigate the world is not the way that an adult character would, and that lends itself to a different kind of story. Um,
Yeah.
and much to I think the world building's benefit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What
I
was your I mean, I guess we can keep just going through the mechs, but I'm interested
mhm.
in which mech was your favorite.
It might be cheating to say Stargazer, but
Fair.
I'm going to say Stargazer, which is the
No.
mech that ended up being Flick Stratus's personal mech. Um, and I think the aspect of Stargazer that appeals to me the most is that everyone had a hand on the ball for that one. That was our final mech. So we
Mhm.
did a little twist on the rules and actually had everyone roll the aspect of that mech and like the condition it was in. And
Mhm.
that made it the most complex and also just I think the most cohesive. Like I believed that one the most.
I get you. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Cuz like this weird meeting spot slash like like gathering place that
Mhm.
is not like the first one, like we get it, like we get the rules. It's the place where everyone meets. It's like bam, bam, bam. You got the string going out. It's where all the adults meet. Whatever. Something about having the place of this huge monument split in half of
Mhm.
an angel esque creature, angel esque mech that is a place where people kind of celebrate, like, and we don't even know what that celebration is, right? Like we
Right.
don't see it, we only see the ghosts of it, the echoes of the the decoration, the flags hanging between the two halves of it, the art on it, the two depictions of both war and peace on either side. um and it's like both like the subtle implication of like, oh, this is a weapon of war that was against this place and like was implicit in complicit in it's like in the Ragnarok that, destroyed Earth essentially. um
Right.
and but like still like being like seen as the image that it is, which is that of something that is above humanity, right? An angel.
Right.
And like, yeah, I think all of us being able to like have a little bit like throw a little bit of something in the pot there for that, just like it really made such a compelling image of it's the one that I could see the most, I feel, as we
Mhm.
were describing it. Like it felt like a real place.
Yeah. And you touched on something just that I love there. Um, the the grounds around the mech, the grounds around the Stargazer feel like hallowed ground. This feels like a place with power. This feels like a place where when you enter that space, you start to subconsciously speak in a whisper because it's just that sense of regardless of who you are, what side of the conflict you are on, this is a place of power. This is a
Hmm.
place that people have decided has value. And that's why the other beautiful aspect of it is the Stargazer, despite being an enemy mech, is not being degraded. It is not graffitied with like screw you Astrans or you're f- dirty space people. It doesn't it's decorated. It
Hmm.
has been dressed up in this beautiful way, despite the fact that it is a weapon of war against them. And it almost speaks to a sort of understanding on their part of, uh, on some level at least, that they understood what the Stargazer meant to people from Astra, and they're almost giving it the same respect that it would have been given back home, perhaps in a museum, um, by setting it up in this space and celebrating uh, something here, or at least commemorating something here. Um,
Hmm.
and that's just a lovely visage for me.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think I think my favorite mech, and I'm really tied here. Stargazer is great.
Mhm.
Um, I I really like the concept of the Dune worm
Yes.
as a flying worm mech and something
Yep.
that like drills into like in like spirals in the sky and like in a way that feels very like when you think of mechs, that's not what you think of. You think of
Right.
Megazords, you think of Gundams, you think of humanoid things, and like, or even you're thinking of Zoids, which tend to be very four-legged. You know, they're lions, cougars, bears, elephants, whatever. But you don't ever really get the weird animals, right? The weird shapes and forms and movement types that different animals get in a mech. And I think being able
Hmm.
to like see that and like, oh, like they aren't just like, they don't just, take inspiration from the predators in the world, right? They take inspiration from everything, even worms.
Right.
Um, and I think that like makes them feel really cool, unique, and like utilitarian in a lot of different ways because it means the mechs have a lot of variation in functionality, right? The way that the Green Devil works is going to work way different than the Doom Worm because
Right.
the Doom Worm burrows and flies while the Green Devil is mostly land based. Maybe it can climb and stuff, but like the
Hmm.
way in which it functions is different, and it also means it could be used for different things. Dune Worm can be a combat mech, but it's probably primarily like a tunneling mech. It's for construction.
Right.
And but it can also be used as this weapon of war, like all of the other mechs, which I think is
Yeah.
super, super cool.
And the fact that we did not go into detail on we definitely could have, but going into detail on the specific use cases of each mech, I think
Mhm.
would have sort of taken away from their majesty because we don't know, the kids don't know
They
what
don't
this
know.
is for.
Yeah.
And like they come on it, they describe it as best as they can to Flix, and Flix is like, okay, it's probably this, it sounds like this, but he can't see it either. So he's
Yeah.
like, to a certain extent, he's like, okay, it could be. It could
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
be that you're just, like, only able to see a part of it, and you're only
Yeah.
describing the part that you can see, but
Yeah.
this worm-like mech, this dune worm is beautiful in a weird way because the thing that I keep coming back to is how do you pilot it? How
Yeah.
do you pilot it?
Right. Is it
There's
like
no
a
cockpit.
train where there's a conductor in front, or is it
The
like?
cockpit could be inside, the cockpit could be, like, in the middle somewhere, on the tail,
Yeah.
somewhere in the mouth, I don't know.
I have no
Maybe it's
idea.
not piloted by a physical body at all, it's piloted by, remotely by, like, a group and, a co-op group.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Working the individual sections. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I love that part of it, and I guess
Yeah.
just to round out the final mech, um, what was it? The
This
Celestial Throne.
Yes. I This is the one that's tied for my favorite because both the design seems like it'd be
Mhm.
so fucking cool. But
Now
also the way in which you pilot it.
yes. The fact that you cannot this is not a mech that you can pilot with your physical human form.
No.
There's no space for you there, and it doesn't even have any of the design sensibilities that you would expect to be there. What it has is a body that is all angles and all geometry, a body that is almost like, uh, it's beautiful, but only when you look at one aspect, because when you look at the whole, none of the angles seem to work together.
Mhm.
And that, like, almost, it's perhaps overused, but that biblical angel imagery of the shape that defies belief, uh, is fascinating and very compelling.
Yeah, no. I think I was when I was describing it, I was taking I feel like I described its design because I described its arm first and then its body and then its head. And I almost kind of wanted to, and I think I did, um, choose very different aesthetics for each piece. Almost
Yep.
like it feels like it's three different mechs put together, but like the like arm being like fragmented shards. Um, almost very like there's a I think for that I was kind of imagining there's a an old race for Dungeons and Dragons called the Shard Mind, uh
Mm,
which is complete like it is a crystal being that can break itself apart and like put it back. It's a psionic creature um that keeps its form using telekinesis essentially, but has individual control of all of the different shards that make up its body. And like for the arm, like that's definitely like the kind of thing that like because I was thinking of like because I described it in like how its hand is segmented in like all of these different shards, but like not connected. I was just imagining that's just what the hand is. Those things never were
yeah.
supposed to connect. Those things individually like are manipulated despite not ever touching like a center point
Right.
or something like that. And like
Yeah.
having the body like feel like I wanted the body to feel unlike like it should not feel like something that we would it should not feel like something that someone would actually build because
Mhm.
it should feel like something that is beyond the imagination, something that feels like it shouldn't work, but for whatever reason this being, as the Astrians would probably think of it, in and of itself is something that defies what we think should be possible. It is
Mm,
literally the physical manifestation of their belief that they should ascend beyond what the chains of gravity, the chains of our humanity, and imagine something better than ourselves.
mhm. Yeah. No, that really comes through in the design. One of the first things I thought as you were describing it was, "This should not be in a gravity well. This
Yeah.
should not be here. This sounds like like, this entity was not made to be in gravity, and it is wrong for it to be here."
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the wonderful thing that the thing I really like because you and I had already talked about the possibility of different philosophies behind the way that mechs work.
Mhm,
Um, and I kind of like I touch on it a little bit in Majesty and Agony, where I add the concept of there being essentially cores of humans, a synthetic creation that tied like that acts as a core of the nervous system of a synthetic body, similar to that in like Alita Battle Angel. And like we've like seen it like be able to like it's what the wasps are, which I think I loved also being able to establish like what those were because we
mhm.
like created those super soldiers. But I was like, what makes them cool? Like I know that they're like primarily like it's cybernetic and like probably some gene splicing that like goes
Mhm.
into it. But like I had no real concept of like okay, what does that look like when like because we also described it as being like something where people would see it and be like, well, I'm fucked. Like they know immediately, like they can
Right.
tell. And I think having that purely synthetic body made for war, a war machine in a humanoid form on like a humanoid scale as well,
Yeah.
and having it be a thing that is so unhuman like that it technically is like it's not a human body, it's completely synthetic and you have to be put into it like as if it were a mech or a car or something like that and be able to
Yeah.
use it. um And we had talked about the possibility of that technology originating from the kingdom of Astra, because they use that technology in order to pilot these celestial thrones, because they want to free them, quite literally free themselves of their bodies, and be able to, like, empathetically sync up with these machines that to them are like the closest thing to divinity that humans can reach as of this point, but in the hopes that in syncing with this can become something that's better, and so can continue to imagine new heights as the evolution of humanity is pushed forward out of our humanoid forms and into something better.
Yeah. Yeah, and that really that sense of trying to escape the bounds of what you are and trying to expand your horizons is really what drives all of the Astron Kingdom's decisions,
Hmm.
and it's evident in everything that they do. Um, so why wouldn't it be evident in their machines of war? Why wouldn't it be evident in
Hmm.
their architecture? Why wouldn't it be part of their art, their literature, their schooling? It's all about trying to sort of like exceed your own bounds without even really saying what those bounds are, because the Astrans sort of rely on this idea that, oh, there is something inherently flawed about the way that humanity is, but they're very vague about it. Like, they'll blame
Yeah,
gravity, they'll blame Earth, they'll blame reliance on this technology or that. But at the core of it, what it is really just a means to an end at some level. Um, and I love the idea that that idea of surpassing their limits comes through in everything.
yeah, I agree. And it's like, and it simultaneously makes them such a compelling and even sympathetic, like, philosophy, in that of like it is at its core like something that is kind of positive, right? It is something, it is trying to better yourself, trying to better the people around you, trying to work towards the continual betterment and evolution of the people around you into something that alleviates the burden of what we currently have to deal with, alleviates the burden of gravity and pain and suffering into something truly perfect. And like, to a
Mhm.
degree, and not at its extreme that they take it to, it is something kind of positive. And like,
Yeah.
you can see why people would buy into this, why people who would want to better themselves and better their communities and better culture and better society and keep adding on to the history and lore of their people in a way that continues to escalate, in a way that possibly pushes them out of the suffering that they're used to. um,
Mhm.
you can see why people would buy into that. And you can also see how it would be used at its extreme to manipulate people and get people to fight for your cause and get for people to commit grievous harm to other people in the name of said betterment.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And I think this is a good segue into some I believe the last thing we have to talk about today, which is just sort of um what's next for Prayers of the
Yeah.
Static. Um this might end up being a bit of a shorter stream than usual, but I think it was fairly dense.
Yeah, I agree. I
Um
mean, yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you'd like to start us off with like what you think is coming next, or what perhaps what parts of the world you're most excited to develop further.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, I really want to see a bit more of what Earth looks like, and we have a game coming up that will be taking place on Earth that is more of a traditional RPG, um, with like people going on a quest or whatever. It's be a mystery game. So I'm excited for that. I am. I really do want to be able to have boots on the ground on Earth and be able to just get a sense of like what how life has changed on it, and what
Mhm.
is it like objectively, right, and not just through like a child's lens. um
Right.
I'm also very excited to kind of explore like the future of sentient AI and like other vectors for that sapience to kind of arrive, um, and see like how that interplays and maybe like possibly comes into conflict with itself and like the other like different vectors of people coming into sapience, and seeing like how those interact. Do those build different cultures based around the way in which that vector happens, and like do those ever like come into conflict? We talked like semi jokingly about the possibility of post like everything that happens in Majesty and Agony that Cam goes on to create a religion
Hmm.
for like this new form of synthetic life. And like I don't necessarily know that that's not true. Like what does that look, what does AI religion look like? You know, I
Right.
know that like Overwatch kind of has like a thing of it, but it feels kind of half baked, and I have no idea how or what it is. It's like just vague synthetic.
Vague Buddhism.
Yeah, right, which feels kind of meh and
Yeah.
uninspired. But like I'm interested to see like what an actual religion and what actual faith and spirituality looks like from synthetic life.
Yeah.
um and yeah, and I think those are like primarily the things that I'm like, I'm really also the Kingdom of Astra. I super want to see this war at some point. Like we've been
Yeah.
talking about it, we know the war happens. I want to have boots on the ground and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that as well.
1,000%. Those are both uh, just gold mines of information and interesting stories to tell. And to just sort of like address what you brought up there, a religion is essentially a meta narrative. It's a narrative about why we tell what stories we tell and how those stories connect. So, like as you mentioned, the one in Overwatch feels half baked because there's no question that the omnic religion that Zenyatta is like vaguely a part of, there's no question that it is answering. It's
Yeah,
not really providing the people that ascribe to those belief systems anything to like explain how their world works or how it doesn't or why.
yeah,
So to truly address a synthetic religion, they would have a story that they are telling about the world. And what that story would be, I don't exactly know. I have ideas, but it would be more complex than uh, a single day in. It would take more than one day to sort that out. It would take more than one game to explore. It would take.
yeah,
It's a complex web of interconnected stories. Um, and to sort of just like spin off of that into things that I'm excited for,
yeah,
as you mentioned, the Kingdom of Astra has. I'm not going to say they got points, but I am going to say that the driving force of their society is something that is interesting and not necessarily um, morally bankrupt. It is in
yeah,
their case, but I would be very interested to see how those philosophies develop differently in the Outer Nations Alliance, which is essentially the Kingdom of Astra without the nationalism. The
yeah.
Kingdom of Astra has the same pressures on it and chose to go in this direction. But the ONA is similarly under the same pressures. They have that same reliance on Earth. They have that same need to create a collectivist society because space is hard.
Mhm.
Space is not made for us. So you really need to change us or to put a lot of work into keeping a perfectly stable environment. And I think that the ONA is probably going to change themselves in a way that is different and unique from Astra. And
Yeah,
how their philosophy develops is something that I definitely want to explore.
yeah. I agree. I think something I also forgot is I really want, I want us to explore these corporations more, because the
Oh,
corporations
yeah.
are the inciting thing of this, right? And I imagine even until like post-war, like there are colonies and like maybe entire spheres that they have control over, right? Probably
Hmm.
like, and I think as time goes on, we start seeing quite a few of the spheres, or maybe even parts of spheres, break away from the corporatocracy and begin, you know, kind of like the Kingdom of Astra, finding its own way in which that it chooses to govern itself and chooses to organize. um and like I think we're gonna find like socialist socialist communist colonies. I think we're going to see um, democratic or republics or democratic republics in
Hmm.
these colonies, and then some of the colonies are just going to still be going to stay corporatocracies for the end of time because the grips of capitalism are too tight. And I really want us to really explore all of the different kinds because like we've been slowly building out lists of like some of these corporations, but like I really want us to like see like what does company culture look like, how do these companies actually affect like we have a vague idea of what a corporatocracy is, right? Like
Hmm.
it is a system of government where a community is controlled by businesses and corporations. But like in every form of media that I can think of, it's like so vague of what that means,
Yeah.
right? What does the society that is run by a corporation look like? Like, why do roads get built? Who builds those? Is it a
Hmm.
corporation? Is it one of the corporations building it because like they need people to be able to get to work and so they only build it for their people, or is like the community run by multiple like because there are multiple organizations within this community, who decides what happens and when, how do they organize any of this, how does one
Yeah.
person not start like a public works project because it helped for them, but like can anyone just do that whenever they want? Is there a board of them that decide, okay, you all do this, you all do like I have no idea how of those. And at the very least, none of the science fiction that I've and took like really explores that at all. And I would really like
Yeah.
for us to see the ways in which these corporations interact with each other and build societies because they do. The only reason anyone is out here is because a bunch of tech bros went, "Hey yo, I'm tired of being on Earth. Let's go to
Hmm.
space because shit's about to get real bad down here." And like that's why it exists. What does a culture, community, and like what does all of that look like? How
Right.
does that happen? And like how does that develop? And like the kingdom of Astra is built like it also used to be a corporatocracy. And like while they
Hmm.
currently have their own ways in which they function in culture, like there are still going to be remnants of that corporate nature in them. And I'm interested, what are those? And like, how does that permanently stay in a culture for the rest of its evolution
Yeah.
and ways in which it develops?
1,000%. Those are all like these huge questions that often go unanswered. I'm very curious to see how the different corporations, if they decide to play nice in certain spaces, or if they maintain public spaces, or what accommodations they are willing to provide. What there's so many questions and so many different ways that things could be run. Um, it would be a blast to explore even a few of them. Um, and that's definitely one of the things that I'm also looking forward to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And then of
excited.
course, when we get back to Earth, we gotta we gotta talk about just what goes on at various levels of Earth socially. What is
Yeah,
life
right.
like when you've got it made? What is life like when you're poor in the city? What is life like when you're poor in a location that is like far outside the reaches of the city? A
Hmm.
location that no longer is really ruled over by any world government. Like, what does that look like?
Hmm. I'm very
There's
excited.
so many questions, and I'm
Very
so
excited.
excited that we get to answer those questions for you.
All here, baby. Every other Friday.
Every other Friday. Speaking of which, next week, coming up next, we've got an exciting game for you.
Not
This is
next week.
going to
The
be
week after.
no, I'm sorry, next session, 2 weeks from now,
July
July
22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got a very exciting game. We're going to be seeing our first. Oh wait, no, I guess I return every session.
No, you
Um,
do.
our second returning a friend. We're gonna be having Joe, Scary Dog Friend, on for Heck City. Heck City. That is a vocab word for all of you out there. It was new to me.
What does
Um,
it mean?
I believe it means like oneness or selfness.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Think thisness. Excuse me. It's
Oh,
a Socratic thing.
interesting. Like the attribute of being the thing
This
that it
and
is.
not that. Yeah.
Huh. I really like that.
Yes.
There's I don't know if I've told you. I have in I think that word perfectly encapsulates. I had a religion in a previous game
Mhm.
that I've told you about my hatred of gnomes, right?
You have. We've talked extensively about this.
Right, and I've told you about the religion that those gnomes had, where they worshipped a hole.
Yes. Yes.
This religion kind of is encapsulated in that, in this word, where it was a religion based in like the aspects of what a hole is, and they kind of broke it like it like on the surface feels weird, but like it was broken down into four things. First of all, the existence of a hole means that there is something here that is different from the things around it. A hole is different from the dirt that's around it. It is a distinct thing from itself. And if you have a bunch of holes in the ground, those things are distinct, and you can tell that they're distinct because there are things those uh in between those holes. So the
Mhm.
first aspect of like the whole religion was based about around like philosophically trying to be more like a whole, and like the understanding and acceptance of the four qualities of a whole in and of yourself. And the first one being understanding your individuality and your uniqueness, and like the fact that you are a whole that is distinct from everything else, because you a whole in and of itself has a presence. um
Right.
and the second one, like, and it was like having depth, was one, like the depth of the whole, the amount of experience that one wants to have, that makes it what, like the things that are in the whole are
Mhm.
part of what define the whole. A hole full of water is different from a hole full of trash, right? And
Mhm.
the different types of experiences change the kind of hole that you are, and makes you more unique and more different and much more full of experience than all of the other things. And then there's the and then there's okay, so those are the things in the whole. The depth of the whole is trying to go out and experience all of those things themselves, even if you don't even if you don't go out and experience a bunch of different things, there will be things that are in that hole that are your experience, but you have to continue to push yourself to experience more, and to take in more, and to connect to others more. um, because those are parts of things that those are the parts of the things that are in the whole. And then the fourth one is the darkness of a whole. The deeper one gets, the more shadow that kind of takes up the space. Like light doesn't fully like take up like the entirety of the whole. There will be dark places, there will be shadowy places, and in those places are what you should be keeping both private, and make like hiding those things from people who would use those things to wrong you. It is
Mhm.
not important for everyone to know what is in the whole. It is important to have for the it is important for the whole to have depth and have things in that depth. It is not important that someone standing outside of the hole can look into the hole and see the entirety of what that hole is, right? Um,
Right.
I know I'm saying hole a lot, and that's weird. But like that was kind of part of like the thing, is that like it's kind of something that it feels kind of goofy, and the reason for this with is like they were diametrically opposed to the people who were
Foes.
oppressing them. What?
Diametrically opposed foes. Anyways.
They were diametrically opposed to the people who were oppressing them, right? And it was supposed to think that felt weird, that people outside of that community would be like, haha, that's silly, but something that they took very, very seriously.
Mhm.
Um, and I came up with this whole religion that I feel like has weight to it in a way that like at first I was like, I don't know what this is gonna be, but it ended up being something that was actually really interesting to me personally. We
I
all are
think it
oppressing the holes.
genuinely, and
Yeah.
I know this might lose some weight just based on my actions over the past minute and a half.
Uh
But
huh.
I think that is a very interesting concept for a faith, and it could create this compelling sense of it doesn't matter what it is, this is their thing. And this is
Yeah,
the lens that they view the world through.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
the whole was also their god and did give its body for them to build their home. Um,
okay. And that
so
provides a
it's
very
not
good
like,
justification for it.
yeah, it's not like just, oh, look, a random hole. No, it's like there is the hole that they came out of from the underfey into this world and then was forced to go back in and then built their home in the body of the hole. Um, this is gnomes. This is a religion that I made, Joe, for a D&D game.
I would love it if you I'm sorry. I'm down for whole religion ascending me.
It's really
I
good.
would love it if you would take the reins on the religion that we form for at least some of the Astrons, because this is a very interesting concept. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, hey, I'm super down. I religions are one of my favorite things to world build. So I'm 100% down to make our weird semi-fascist religion. The religion isn't fascist. The people who use
it
it are
could be
fascist.
if you want it to
It
be.
could be. We'll see. We'll
You could
see
build
where
that
it
in.
goes. We can build that in. I wonder if there's any TTRPGs that are about making religions. I was literally about to Google it and go on a whole thing.
Yeah,
As is my want to do, we can do that off stream.
we can do that off stream. With that said, I'm going to call out one more time that in 2 weeks on July 22nd, Scary Dog Friend will be on for Hex City, Prayers in the Static. And then following that up, we've got more exciting stuff. We're going to, that's you.
That is you.
Um, Unless there's another Scary Dog Friend that I can have that I'll call that one. The
Damn.
we're going to get to see a little bit more of Earth and from a little bit of a different perspective. So stay tuned. A lot of great stuff coming up. It is so lovely to be able to share these stories with you. And I am so privileged to be able to create them with Kendo and with all of our other amazing guests and co hosts. And uh, I I just feel lucky. Thank you all for everything that you have done. And I believe, Kendo, before we do our sign off, you might have a little bit of an announcement.
Hey, you all. Do you want that logo that's down there? You want that logo on a shirt or a mug or a sticker that you can put on your computers uh, or on your phone or on your face so people can know that you like it. Well, you can get it at our new merch store, the Tales Yet Told merch store, where you can get all kinds of art that we've made, the logos, cover arts, character arts, all good arts that we have that we've got from people. Bam, you can get that stuff on a shirt, sticker, mug, or other clothing item. And you, I don't know what's happening. I'm slowly devolving into some Rick
Gotta
and
get the
Morty
singlet.
skit.
Gotta get that singlet.
Gotta get the singlet. Hey, and you know what? You can get it at our merch store at merchyetsold.com. It's I'm just gonna be honest. The vast majority of production for Tales Yet Told, the money that goes into getting art commissioned, getting having the podcast be hosted, and all of the different subscriptions and stuff needed to make the thing, they come out of my pocket. And so this is an attempt, or at least the first attempt, for us to be able to try to make the podcast a little bit more sustainable, and to be able to help us support us, be able to grow and be able to get more art because art's very expensive, and be able to do all these things without, you know, me going broke. So, um, yeah, just please support us if you would like. Tell your friends, get some stuff. If you get some stuff and you decide to wear it or whatever, take a picture of yourself. You can tweet it at us and we'll retweet it. And we just love seeing that people enjoy the the many different projects and stuff that we bring to you because you're the reason why we do it. There's no reason why I would keep doing this podcast with as much work as it takes if it did not do it. Joe, please, that would be amazing. Holy shit, that would be so. That's good. That's good promo right there, baby. That's
That's
gonna
good
we'll
promo.
sell millions.
Here, I'll make you a promise. If you take a picture of yourself in Tales Yet Told or Prayers in the Static merch and post it to twitter.com with the hashtag Prayers in the Static, there is
Static
a
prayers.
static
Static
prayers, excuse
prayers.
me, static prayers. Um, there is a non-zero chance that your picture may appear, if we can get attributions, uh may appear on the pre-roll for this same show, and we will retweet it. It's non-zero. I'm not going to promise you that. I can't promise you that. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what kind of pictures you're going to take, but I can
As
say the
long
chance will be more than zero.
Yeah, I would say we can make that happen because hey, I mean that's just advertising for us, and also we want to show off our community. Our community, there's some fucking dope people in our community, and so you know
Mm,
what? If you support us, we'll help support you. And so if you get our merch, send us a pic of you with the merch. We'll be in our pre-roll, and we'll put your little tag there.
yeah.
I'll make that promise.
No.
I can do that. I'm
Beautiful.
a,
Amazing.
I'm a producer of this show and a director of this channel. No one can
I
stop me.
didn't run that by Kendo before I said that. I just said
Nope,
that with the
but it's
assumption that
happening.
regardless of the actual odds, they would be increased to not zero. Um, so it's good to have that confirmation. Hey, would you look at that? Um, with all that said, I have been your host tonight. I am Ibrahim. You can find me on TikTok at Ibrahim underscore MA, on Twitter at 97 underscore Ibrahim. And as always, I am joined by my amazing, lovely, beautiful co host, Kendo. Take us away, Kendo.
Hey, you all. My name is Kendrick, or Kendo if you prefer, and you can find me on all social media at Kendo Makes Films. And you can find our actual play podcast, Tales Get Told, at Tales Get Told on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find our podcast everywhere you get your podcasts. We are currently actually playing through Echo. The Prayers in the Static stream that we did of Echo, it's in podcast form. If you want to edit it down, quick to the punch, bam, you're going to get it. It's going to be in two parts. First part already came out, and not this next week, but the week after. I just realized that Tales Yet Told is coming out this now comes out on the same weeks of Prayers in the Static, which isn't a bad thing. Probably should
Hmm.
have inverted them, but it is what it is.
Eh,
Yeah. But yeah, you'll get another Echo. You'll get the second part of Echo, and you know what? If you want to watch the other stuff that we did, go to the VODs at the Bards and Brews YouTube channel, which you can find a link in both the Tales Yet Told link page, but also on the Bards and Brews Twitter. And thank you so much for Bards and Brews for letting us use your channel to be able to start a little thing here. We appreciate it.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, for showing up, and thank you to Bards and Brews as always. Thank you to Tales Yet Told, and thank you to Monster Lover Pod for giving me my podcast debut. Um,
Yeah.
we've been your hosts, and I what's the rest of this? Stay hydrated. Make sure
Don't forget,
you drink enough water and eat enough food, and have a wonderful night.
get enough sleep
Get enough sleep.
and take care
Forgot
of
that one.
yourself because self
Take
care
care
is
of
very
yourselves,
important,
friends.
especially in the world we're living in now.
Alrighty.
And don't forget to love yourself like we love
Don't
you.
forget to love yourself. Self love is so key. Good
So
night,
key.
everyone.
Goodbye. Good night. So long, farewell. Auf Wiedersehen.